What are you telling your clients today about this?
Yeah, I guess we are late stage cycle. We've been talking for some time about the pace of monetary tightening that we've been seeing around the world, not just in the US, obviously in Europe and in some emerging markets as well, and indicating that that's going to test the system to see if things break. And clearly, we had the breaking in the UK around the Truss administration. And now we've got trapeze in the financial sector. So our view is, already was, that we'd be heading into a recession, and that recession would be probably worse than average, not global financial crisis or anything like that, but worse than average. And therefore, it's time to be a bit safe with your investments, underweight equities and overweight high quality credit.
Well, this is not the same sort of disasters we saw in the summer in Britain, Steve, but it does act as a bit of a playbook for this. Explain how.
Yeah, I guess from our perspective, the challenge is that the authorities really want to get ahead of this, right? And this is a period of still fighting fires. So we thought that we were dealing with just regional banks in the US, sizable regional banks. Let's not make no mistake, but containable. Now we're seeing it transferring across, into the European banking sector and Switzerland specifically. And then now we're sort of, as I say, we're seeing the regulators and central banks having to think about how they're going to fight these fires. So it is going to be, I think, challenging in the short term, because we don't know where the next shoe to drop will come from. But in the short term, therefore, that means we're going to see significant volatility. I mean, usually we look at the VIX for volatility, but if you look at the Bank of America Move Index, that blasted through the heights of volatility seen in COVID earlier this week, and now it's gone through the 2009 high, still a way away from 2008, but it just shows the level of uncertainty that the market is facing today.
Well, Steve, to your point, with the move gauge where it is, you're calling overweight bonds. Does that include treasuries, for example?
So it has. I mean, sort of, if we look at the global bond universe, we're overweight. So obviously, U.S. Treasuries are a part of that. It's not been a core focus of ours. So we are, developed market investment grade bonds. And Asian investment-grade bonds. Those have been the areas that we've been largely focused on. It is indicative of the environment that we're worried about, and see challenges coming through from the economic side, and therefore leading to lower long-term yields over the foreseeable future.
Steve, just looking at Credit Suisse there, how much of its problems have been caused by the cost of borrowing and how it's been tightened over the last year or thereabouts, and how much can be laid at the doorstep of actually in the individual bank itself and the problems that it's had over the years, and how they've come to roost, and perhaps they've been exacerbated by the interest rate environment?
Yeah, it's probably a perfect storm to some degree, right? So if you look at would we be facing the stress that we're seeing today if we hadn't seen what we saw in the US last week? I doubt it very much. We may still have seen a sell-off, but the magnitude obviously has been incredibly dramatic and swift, and that, I think, just shows the sensitivity that markets have now to any negative news in the financial sector. So that's the reality of the situation that we're in. Now, I guess the question is, looking forward, what will central banks do about this to sort of try and rectify the situation? So we've got obviously policy decisions coming up in Europe this week, tonight, and then and the Fed soon as well. And they have a horrible balancing act to achieve here, right? Because they've got inflation still very high, and maybe the US looks at PPI with a kind eye after last night's release, but CPI was still very, very high. Europe obviously wanted to hike 50 basis points, so now the most I think they can do is 25, and maybe we'll even see them take a bit of a pause to let the dust settle here.